We'll go ahead and call the July 20th meeting to order. Apologize for being late on this, but the work session ran over a few minutes. We're going to open up tonight with a moment of silence and also then the pledge, but Ms. Rafalowski will have some comments to make about the moment of silence. So at this time, Ms. Rafalowski, and then later Mr. Hughes will do the pledge.
Good evening. This evening, during our moment of silence, I want us to remember someone who is a lifelong employee, a lifelong friend of Sullivan County Schools. This board actually recognized her in May at their board meeting as being the one employee who ushered in North High School with Charlie and I in 1980, and was there to close the doors at the end of May. Miss Sandy Davis, a longtime employee secretary at Sullivan North, passed away this morning. A wonderful lady. She gave everything to that school. I told somebody earlier today, I don't think I ever heard her have a crossword to anybody. And she got to see a lot of irate people at that front window. But she was always kind. And I wish she had had more time to enjoy her retirement. She did retire at the end of, during June. And I just want us to remember her son and his family this evening. Remember the wonderful person that she was and the many contributions that she made to the Sullivan North community and the family there, and the friendships that she had along the way. A beautiful lady, wonderful lady, and one that certainly touched my life along the way. So please remember her as we have our moment of silence. Thank you.
Would everyone please stand? Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
During the work session, I forgot to say welcome back to Ms. Rafalowski. So it's such a routine phase here now that we're glad you're back, though.
Thank you.
This time we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda, and when you make a motion to approve the agenda, you are also making a motion to approve the consent agenda. So do we have a motion?
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hughes makes the motion, Mr. Gilmore makes the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next on the list is public comments. At this time, Ms. Angie Stanley, I'll recognize her as County Commissioner to come up, and she will introduce Ms. Sullivan County, Eliza Sanders, and I have been familiar with Eliza from many years ago in church.
Thank
Angie?
you, Board. I want to thank you all for allowing me to introduce to you all this beautiful, bright, smart, talented young lady. I've been honored to have watched her grow up from elementary school up through her high school years. This is Eliza Sanders. She is the newly crowned Miss Sullivan County 2022. She is the 18-year-old daughter of Joel and Donna Sanders, who lives in Colonial Heights area, along with her little sister Lydia. Eliza is a proud product of the Sullivan County school system, where she attended Military Elementary School, Colonial Heights Middle School, and is a 2021 Sullivan South High School graduate. While at South, Eliza was a 4-year member of the Southern Bells dance team and served as captain for 2 years. She also is on the student council member and officer for 3 years. Eliza served as the president of the International Thespian Society and was also recognized by the organization as an honors fine arts student. She was a dance captain for 3 musical theater productions and also acted as assistant director for advanced acting. She is a member of the Beta Club, Key Club, and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Eliza was a 2-time All-American dancer with the Universal Dance Association. She was also chosen to attend the Governor's School for Arts Dance program during her time at Sullivan South. At graduation, Eliza received numerous awards and scholarships, including the Academic Boosters Scholarship, and was a Fred and June Childress Foundation Scholar. Liza is active in our community as well. She was recently named one of the Appalachian Highlands and StreamWorks 20 Under 20. She serves as the youth ambassador for the Isaiah 117 House and also partners with Sullivan County Imagination Library. She has worked with Girls Inc., Niswangers Children's Hospital, Children's Miracle Network, Special Olympics, and Night to Shine. She attended the Shout Leadership program and was a member of the Kingsport Mayor Youth Council. Eliza was danced since she has been 3 years old and continues to train and perform with Holloway Dance School Performance Team. She is passionate about adoption and foster care awareness as an adoptee herself. In addition to partnering with Isaiah 117 House, Liza is the social media chair for Gen Z adoptees and is also active in a local adoption group called Our China Angels. This past March, Eliza was named the second runner-up at the state Miss Tennessee's Outstanding Teen Competition, where she competed as Miss Historic Greenville's Outstanding Teen. This fall, Eliza plans to attend Middle Tennessee State University, where she plans to pursue a degree in dance, with hopes one day to teach at the collegiate level. She looks forward to serving her community in her role as Miss Sullivan County. It is an honor for me to present to you all tonight Miss Sullivan County, Eliza Sanders.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Eliza Sanders, and first I just want to say I am so grateful and honored to be here. I grew up in Sullivan County. I've always been a Sullivan County girl, and I am a product of the Sullivan County school system. And I am so grateful for everything that those teachers and you guys have done for me. I am so excited to be serving in this community. I love all of these community events, and last year as Miss Historic Greenville's Outstanding Teen, I still was able to do some things in the community, but now with this title as Miss Sullivan County, I'm so excited to be able to open up new doors for me to do more. I am partnered with the Isaiah 117 House as their youth ambassador, and a part of my plan as Miss Sullivan County is to continue doing drives for them. I was able to do a drive called the Smile Project when I was still in high school, and that was absolutely amazing. But where I wasn't holding a Sullivan County title, I was only able to do that at my local high school. So now with Westridge and our new middle schools, I cannot wait to get started with doing more drives for them all over this area. If there is absolutely anything that you guys need, if you want me to be a liaison between you and the youth, or out in the community, please let me know. I want to be of use to you and at your disposal. So thank you so much for allowing me to represent this community, and I cannot wait to serve you guys. Thank you.
Even your sister stood up for you there. Thank you, Eliza, and congratulations, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that some will be calling you to work with Westridge and Sullivan Heights at middle school, and maybe others in the area also. So congratulations. Moving on with the agenda. Director's comments.
Well, thank you, Chairman Jones, and again, congratulations to Eliza. It's a very proud moment sitting here as the Director of Schools listening to one of our students who is such a articulate, thank you, Dr. Rouse, articulate, beautiful, and wonderful example of a student from our school district. And I so appreciate that you took a moment to recognize our teachers and the people in our school district that have helped you build a foundation as you move forward. So congratulations, and I just want to say thank you for your comments. I'm so glad you're here this evening, too. Thank you. Speaking on down the list, we are currently working on an open house and a ribbon cutting for Westridge High School. We have not set those dates yet. We want to make sure that things are in place, things are ready as we bring the community and people in for those events. So we will keep you updated on that. We may have a date next July 29th or some dates that we can put before you to see what works best for you. I have asked Sarah to coordinate and work on that along with the administration of Westridge High School. And hopefully we'll get that taken care of very soon. Spent the afternoon there actually taking our current principals from all of our high schools through, and was very pleased with their reaction to what they saw. Our back to school schedule, August 2nd, we will be welcoming all our teachers back to their respective buildings. Some have new homes, new classrooms, and will have quite a bit of work to do once they get there. Lots of boxes sitting in their classrooms, ready to be unpacked. And again, I don't want to miss an opportunity to recognize the work of our maintenance department and our custodians in making this happen this summer. It is tremendous the amount of work that they've been able to accomplish, and they have accomplished it very well. On August 9th, we will begin welcoming our students back. We will have bus routes running. All schools will be in session with all students with the exception of the staggered start for Westridge High School. At Westridge, we have a staggered start, and as I mentioned in the work session, it's extremely important that we look at students attending in this order, with juniors and seniors on Monday and Wednesday, freshmen and sophomores on Tuesday and Thursday, and then welcoming the entire student body on Friday. We want to take some time with smaller groups of students to acclimate them to their new home, their new classrooms, where exits are, safety protocols, procedures for that building, get to know the staff, get to know where everything's located, to include where they're going to find their breakfast and lunch, their classrooms, and so on and so forth, where to park, how to enter, exit the campus. There's a lot of things that we will be trying to accomplish, and I feel very confident that the staff we have in place at Westridge will do a fine job in making this happen. I also want to give you an update on our summer school Quest camps. We actually operated those in 4 locations: Indian Springs, Ketron, Bluff City, and Miller Perry. This lasted for 4 weeks, and we had a total of 495 participants. The camp was exciting and went very well, and I'm most appreciative of all of our administrators and staff who chose to work during that time. I was able to hear lots of the comments made by our staff and even our students, and that the experience provided them something that they hadn't been able to enjoy for a long time, and that was school. Being able to have fun and being able to experience learning in a fun environment. And our teachers went above and beyond to make that experience one that they won't soon forget. We also, at our August meeting, will be recognizing some of our students, our CTE students, who have gained national recognition from East High School and Central High School. We will be recognizing our East High School crime scene investigation team, coached by Ty Boomershine, that placed second in the nationals. And we will also be recognizing our chapter display team from Central High School that were sponsored and coached by Lloyd Putney and Rhonda Flannery as national champions. Very, very proud of those students. They couldn't make it this evening, but I do have confirmation that we should be able to congratulate them and recognize them at our August meeting. Very, very proud of our CTE students, not only what they did at their district level, regional, and state competitions, but to think that we have 2 of our high schools nationally being recognized for their efforts. So congratulations to them. And at this point, Mr. Jones, that is what I have for the director's comments, other than to say thank you so much to the board for the opportunity to come back and revisit this seat for a little while, and hopefully you'll be pleased. So thank you.
Thank you. Item 6, unfinished business. Mr. Hull, if you will give us an update on Lumpville School, Colonial Heights, and also on the Bishop property that we have listed here. We'll just cover all 3 items with one report.
Oh, I did mention at the work session, and I'll say again that we did complete the deeding of the North High School property to the city of Kingsport. I was just thinking, as Ms. Rafalowski was talking about West Ridge and there being an open house scheduled. I was talking to someone from the city. I won't identify who that was, but I just asked, did all that get done, and were they taking over, and was everything going okay? And the answer was yes. And but made a comment that said, wow, only thing I have to say is that is a big building. He just was blown away with how big that building was. And I said, well, let me tell you, brother, you ain't seen nothing yet. So when he gets out to West Ridge, he'll see a big building. And so I'm glad that all that went well. Blountville, we are doing, having an appraisal done. We're having a survey done, as you know, and we're having a title exam done, and all those things are in progress. I hope to get those done quickly, and I'll keep on them, but should be within a couple of weeks or so. We had to get contracts on those, and so that should give the board information that is needed to make a decision on which way to go on those. On the Colonial Heights property, the same. We're doing appraisals and a survey on that property, so we'll have a better idea exactly what we have and what we can do with it. And again, that should be, I would think by next board meeting, we should have that information to you and be able to answer any of your questions. And then the board will have the information needed to move forward. Any questions about those?
Mr. Hull, you made a comment about comments you had heard, and I wanted to, it reminded me of a comment I'd heard, Mr. Hubbard. Mr. Hubbard, there was a lot of comments about how clean and what a good job you guys did when we exited the north building. So please pass along the appreciation to your people. I heard several comments about what a good job you guys did.
And I heard the same thing, and I really, I mean, all I did was the deeds, but I really commend everybody who was involved in that, because I know it was a huge undertaking, and I think it was done really well. Item 6B is the Bishop property. As we discussed in the work session, I have provided you with a proposed contract. That's something that's been negotiated with their attorney. I do recommend that you approve that. As I indicated, just, I guess, so we'll cover that base, I would like for you, or suggest that you go ahead and approve my just handling, paying the $1,000 binder on that, so we'll get that done. And then, as we discussed, the board at some point needs to make a decision, and probably tonight, on whether we want to do the geotechnical survey, and if so, what any necessary details related to that.
You've heard the discussion from Mr. Hull, and as we discussed in the work session, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the contract as presented with the condition that we do not do the geotechnical expenses, core drillings, and also authorizing him to pay the $1,000 of the purchase price, and then we would reimburse him at the end of the process or on the closing date. And if you want to amend my recommendation about the geotechnical study, feel free to do that. Let's get that on the table for discussion. So I'll make the motion to do that, and then if I get a second, that'll put it on the table for discussion.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Dr. Rouse makes the, Mr. Hughes makes the motion, Dr. Rouse makes the second. Now open for discussion.
The timeframe in that contract, Mr. Hull, is 60 days, correct?
Correct.
So my only question would just be if we did learn any information where we felt like we needed to, we could always, at the next week when we meet on the 29th, we could give the notice in between now and then, couldn't we? If we needed to change that action.
Right.
Okay.
That's 60 days till closing from tonight. If we need to change it then for the August meeting, we can do that if you find that there's a need for something else. But the motion is to approve the contract tonight with the stipulation that we do not do the core drilling, but if there's something that comes up between now and August the 5th that we want to do that, we will put that back on the agenda. But this would authorize us to sign the contract and pay the $1,000 and be ready to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Any further discussion? You've heard the motion and the discussion. Roll call, Ms. King.
Mr. Gilmore.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Dr. Rouse.
Yes.
Mr. Spivey.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda, Ms. Rafalski.
Item 6C is the next item on the agenda, and it is the revised 2021-2022 general purpose school budget. As per our discussion during the work session, I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Gilmore makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Mr. Hughes seconds the motion. Any discussion? And again, the main thing in this change is the line item showing property tax increase to 1,000, I think it's 1,000, or 1,025,000, and increasing, or decreasing the sales tax by 1,025,000, so that it still is a balanced budget. And it just confirms what we approved at the earlier meeting when you authorized the executive team to make that move. Roll call, Ms. King?
Mr. Hughes,
Yes?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Yes.
We're moving on to new business. Mr. Aptowski?
New business, item 7A is the United Way Sports Pass. This is a pass sponsored by Eastman for their employees as an incentive for them to contribute to United Way. This pass permits them access to a declared home school for regular season home games only. No championship or district play type tournaments, and it is only for the holder of the pass. I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
I'll
So
make
moved.
that motion.
Motion from Mr. Spivey, second from Dr. Rouse. Any discussion? If not, roll call, Ms. King?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes?
Item 7B, substitute pay. There's actually no action required here this evening, as that will be pushed to our August agenda, but by taking no action, the current situation with substitute pay will revert back to the $65 a day for non-certified and $70 a day for certified. Item 7C is the Students' Rights and Responsibilities Handbook. Brought to your attention 2 items that we would like to ask your permission to change, your approval. One being the script on our social promotion policy, and the second being the grading changes or corrections, addendums that we need to make to the grading policy. I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Dr. Rouse makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Gilmore. This was discussed at length in the work session prior to this with the details, but is there any further discussion? If not, roll call, Ms. King?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes?
Item 7D is the program agreement for the school lunch program. This is an annual agreement that we go through each year. I recommend approval. Our agreement, I also like to note during this time that we will have a free breakfast and free lunch for every student in Sullivan County Schools for the entirety of the year. So again, I recommend approval for the program agreement for the school lunch program.
You've heard the recommendation. Do you have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Spivey makes the motion. Do you have a second?
I second it.
Dr. Rouse seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Roll call, Ms. King?
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes?
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Item 7E is the video for our board meetings and work sessions. This item was put out for public bid. We did have a bid returned from the video guy at $200 per meeting. That would be $200 for a board meeting and $200 for a work session. This would be for a 1-year contract. I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hughes makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Gilmore seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. King?
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes?
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Item 7F is the ELC grant budget approval. Again, I recommend approval of the grant, noting that it is subject to change as per board discussion. When we have the work session where we're discussing the ESSER 2.0 and ESSER 3.0, as well as the ELC grant. With your approval, you're actually approving that we purchase the nurse's software. We're purchasing the AEDs. And in addition, which we didn't mention earlier, but should have, the computers, the laptops that the nurses will need to be able to utilize the software. I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Gilmore makes the motion.
I'll second that.
Mr. Spivey seconds. Any discussion? What we're doing tonight is basically approving then the authorization to go ahead and purchase the AEDs and the the software for 3 years for the nurses plus the computers. And
Yes.
then we can change that later after we have the further.
You can change
vote.
the other items in the grant as needed later, but the grant has been approved as written, and we can make these 3 purchases now, which would be good for starting school and getting these, especially the AEDs, as our others, the batteries are beginning to expire.
If there's no other discussion, Ms. King, roll call.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse.
Yes. Item 7G, added to the current new business board agenda as a result of work session discussion, is the opening plan protocol. I need to come up with maybe a better title for that, but that document that we discussed and read through the work session, and I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion? And this is basically an information type brochure or sheet for the public and for our staff.
I'll make that recommendation.
Okay, we have the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Gilmore seconds. Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey.
Yes.
Chairman Jones, that concludes our agenda for the evening.
Okay, under my comments, there is a several-page letter that you should have a copy of from Tennessee Stands. That's your copy to keep. They sent me this copy and asked to make sure that each board member got a copy of this, and I do have 3 or 4 extra copies here, so so I won't be hiding anything from the media. It's there for you. And this gives us some information, maybe some additional guidance. Next Thursday, the 29th, BOE work session, 4:30. Does that fit everyone's calendar? Where we will discuss both the August agenda as well as the ESSER 2.0, ESSER 3.0, and the ELC grant. And
That was the same date we already had
Yes.
down, so Mr. Jones Mr. Robinson, Mr. Iverson
yeah,
already, okay.
should be on their calendar.
Okay.
We'll need to, Christie, can you double check with them tomorrow to make sure that that's not a conflict for them?
Yes.
And we'll do it at 4:30, and it may take a while.
Pack a lunch.
Pack a lunch,
Will.
because there's lots of information that will be there.
You having food?
Yeah, we're getting set, yeah.
May have breakfast.
We'll have something.
I wanted to give you an update on the driveway entrance to West Ridge, and my voice is not strong tonight, but I want to make sure that board members know where we're going on this. I met with the engineers this morning and with the architects. This has probably been the 3rd or 4th meeting we've had, because we've been to TDEC and several other places, because it involves the environment, so we have to do the environmental study. And they are still working on the design to be the least impact to Russell Creek is the whole issue here. We're looking hopefully to have a design by late 2020 or 2021 and maybe be ready to do something further by the first of the year. But it's a slow process because of the blue line designation of Russell Creek. But just so everyone won't think we've forgotten about trying to get the driveway cut in, and it will involve some rock. We know that already because of the way of going in. But in addition to that, the highway department has done quite a bit of work out on, they paved Henry Har, so that was finished today. It's not been striped yet, but they said that's a quick job. I talked with them this afternoon, and they've got most of Lynn Road paved, if not all of it. I think there's one little sections they have to tie together. And but one thing that I'd like for you to think about between now and next Thursday, I was asked the question about speed bumps, Charlie, and it probably involves all of us as to where we think it would be best for them to be as you go down Lynn Road, when you go from Browder Chapel over to Lynn. If there's speed bumps needed, I think they've got in the plans maybe for 3, if I understood correctly. And also the striping on where the stop line will be thinking in terms of that. So if board members, if you're out driving and look at that and have ideas for next Thursday, it might be wise for us to do that, because they did ask for some input there. And I don't know much about striping, but the road is set up for 24 feet of pavement, and he actually said they were going to pave the part of the ditch down through there where when you go down Lynn Road. They showed some of it to me today as I was coming here. But progress has been made. The driveway on the main entrance there from Lynn Road has been widened. They're working on that now, doing the wings, or what I would call the wings, to make it a little wider. They dug that out and widened the curve as you go up the driveway. So several things happening, and I believe next week we're scheduled to do maybe some final pavement on the parking lot. Is that right?
July 26th, which is next Monday, they will be paving all the remaining spaces that need the top coat.
And several of us attended the legal conference, the summer law workshop in Gatlinburg this past week, and learned lots of new laws, and in particular, Mr. Hull and I came across one on transportation that we were looking at. So it was handy for us to get that information, because it was put into effect this year as it deals with buses and so forth. But at this point, I'm going to ask each board member for any comments, and I'll start to my left with Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. In the last couple of years, I took it upon myself to create 25 notebooks. One for each commissioner, one special notebook for the mayor. It's called my rebuttal to the mayor. I document every meeting and take notes and watch the videos and listen to every sentence. That includes last meeting, or the July the 8th meeting. And I wanted to take a few moments to answer some things and explain my view of the last couple of years. I wanted to first say a few words about the historic raise that we just gave our employees. It was well deserved and overdue. So congratulations. After watching the county commission meeting, I was shocked to see that some of the very people that has fought the school system on virtually everything we've tried to do, taking credit for this raise. This reminded me of a rooster I heard about one time that took credit for the sun coming up just because he crowed every day. So Herschel Glover, many of the commissioners, not all of them, along with the mayor, they remind me of this rooster. I'll get back to those people in a minute. But right now, I want to point out who's really responsible for this raise. First, I'd like to mention some previous board members, Mr. Bells, Mr. Green, Mr. Wells, This was a vision that they had for a long time. I want to thank them for their commitment and the work that they did to get us here. One person, though, deserves more credit than anyone else, and that's Evelyn Ravlowski. She made the hard choices in every budget that allowed us this historic achievement. I watched year after year as she toiled over each budget, cutting every unnecessary position to get us to this point. Many times, these were unpopular with administrators, and sometimes they were unpopular with the board. So on behalf of a grateful board and a grateful workforce, thank you, Evelyn. The other person I wanted to thank, I'm a little bit blind, so bear with me. The other person that was hands-on and was diligent was Ingrid DeLoche. She prepared every budget and made every budget a reality. She also stood strong when the county commission tried to take the $1.9 million in ESG money from the school system. Had this money been taken, as the commission tried to do, this raise would have never happened. Thank you, Ingrid. I would also like to thank the entire central office group, because without their ongoing team efforts, this would still just be a dream. Thank all you guys. I know how hard it's been. I'd also like to remind everyone of how Evelyn and Ingrid was treated. For 4 years, they were brutally attacked. They attempted to bully and intimidate these two women. I think in part because that they were women, and they were in charge, and they were smarter than everyone in the room. This is all on video, and I saved every bit as proof. So ladies, congratulations. You win. I'd also like to thank the teachers that showed up in large numbers to the meeting. A few of them I talked to personally and asked for their help. Athena Warren, Tina Bowling, Bobby Nave, thank you for your efforts. I know I can always count on you. As I told one of our teachers, we got the ball to the goal line and you spiked it. And then everyone sitting here, you get some credit. You get the credit for making hard decisions and steadfast leadership that it took to get us here. I do appreciate those commissioners that voted to approve our budget, but that was the extent of their efforts. In fact, this raise happened in large part in spite of the efforts of some of the commission, not because of them. So since the county commission challenged the school board to answer questions, I'm going to spend a few months doing just that. I'm going to take it commissioner by commissioner. In the interest of time, tonight I'll just take one. I'll also include a segment on the mayor. So since Mr. Glover asked for answers and made the challenge, I thought it appropriate that he go first. Before we begin, let me remind everyone of what you were seeing at the meeting. We were seeing some of those commissioners lay the groundwork for their next campaign. They tried to spin a story that they cared about teachers and they have been working for this raise. There's only one problem with that. It's just not true. In fact, they have on a yearly basis, some of them tried to steal from the school system. Those that spoke the most and tried to convince you the most at that meeting, they're your worst enemy. Luckily for us, and not so luckily for them, I have saved their words and actions. I did this because I knew they would try to rewrite history. You see, there's some job openings next year. There's 3 school board seats and 24 county commission seats, but most of all, there's a job that pays $130-some thousand a year, and all you have to do is chair 2 meetings a month. There are no expectations, there are no pressures, just a huge paycheck for being a political animal, willing to say or do anything that's convenient at the time. At least that's the way the current employee has done that job. You may have guessed by now I'm talking about the mayor's job. we will elect a new mayor, someone that'll try to bring higher paying jobs into this county. I can't name anything substantial he's done. We need new leadership, not a worn out, angry politician. So, let's begin with Mr. Glover. And I'm going to go back to the beginning because I've kept notes from the beginning. Now, these notes are not all inclusive. This is my summary, so it's shorter. It won't take long. First time I heard from Mr. Glover, he ran for the commission in 2012. He ran in this election as an independent. In the next cycle, he ran as a Republican. He won that race in 2017. In March of 2017, he showed up here at this board meeting. By the time he showed up, he and Dwight King and another man, it was the first time we'd saw their faces. We had been having community meetings and studying for years. But he showed up in March of 2017 when the commission on December the 12th, 2016 had approved the bond. At the request of the mayor, and by request I mean he told us if we didn't meet and choose property, there would not be a vote. So we met on December the 10th and chose the property that we were going to build upon. This was so that everyone voting would know what needed to be done, like a road, for example. Many people attended this meeting, including several county commissioners. The media was here. Everyone was here but Herschel or Dwight. That didn't keep them from showing up in that meeting in March and accusing us of having a secret meeting, even though this was done before we were filming meetings. I have it on film, and I can provide a copy if needed. They came to that meeting asking that we change the location of the middle school to Piney Flats, a location that would not allow us to serve the Folsom Valley students, defeating the entire purpose to build the school in the first place. The next time of consequence that we heard from Herschel Glover was May of 2018, before he was elected. He showed up at a county commission meeting and begged the commission to vote no on a road to Westridge. He went on to rant about the sewer line, throwing out numbers that were wildly incorrect. He also said we need to get Chairman Hughes over here to answer questions since he's always so full of answers. Remember, at this point, he's not on the commission. Again, this is all on tape. I wonder what he said as a candidate. Did he give us any indication of how he would behave if we elected him? Well, it just so happens he did, and I have a copy of it. When Mr. Glover ran for commission, he put out one of these little flyers that we all put out. But I actually read them, and I actually think you ought to mean what you say when you put them out. One of the things he said is, reduce wasteful spending, explore an incentive program for departments that do not annually and unnecessarily liquidate their budgets before the new budget is approved by the commission. Now remember that, because it's going to fly in the face of everything he says from here on out. If you're a teacher and you heard his spiel about how much you cared about you, maybe you should hear the rant where he went on in public about how pitiful you are compared to Bristol and Kingsport. And maybe after that you should hear what he actually said in Bristol, how he openly praised them. You might recall his constant rants about Sullivan County spending $22 million on middle school, but never questioning Bristol for spending $38 million. Not only did he not criticize them, I have him on tape actually praising them. Let's move to April of 2019. April was a banner year. In April, they voted to stop, halt, or temporarily pause the construction of the high school. This was not only voted for by Glover, but it was his resolution. This document remains the most bizarre and most ill-conceived and poorly written document I've ever seen. I have a copy of it with me as well. It appears to have been written by a third grader. However, it is widely suspected that his wife wrote it. I hope that the public realizes that we had signed contracts. We had 300 people showing up for work every day that we would have had to pay. This was a simple attempt to stop and damage our project. Remember, the stated reason to stop and temporarily halt the project was to see if there was enough money to finish the project. Well, stopping and halting the project temporarily would guarantee that there wasn't enough money to finish the project because we would still have to pay. You will not recall a school board vote on this resolution because as chairman I trashed it. Once again, the commission and Mr. Glover was involving itself in things they didn't have the authority to be involved in. This in and of itself is proof that he does not have the expertise to hold the position of commissioner. Let's move to May of 2019. In May of 2019, Glover and King sponsored a resolution to give the school system $580,000 to connect east to the sewer line. Remember this because the charity for the school system is short-lived. June of 2019, in this month, Glover co-sponsored a resolution to cut $7.8 million per year from our budget to pay for the school bond, something that had already been attempted. This happened before, and I'll go into details later. This resolution was amended to cut $2.5 million and was short of passing by only one vote. Now, does that sound like a commissioner that's working hard to give you a raise? In fact, on the contrary, any of these changes would have guaranteed we never would have given a raise and would have had to make deep cuts in pay and in benefits. Does this sound like a commission that was generously funding the school system? Or does it sound like a funding body trying to steal from the school system? But it gets better. October 2019. I'm jumping to October because this is the month that Mr. Glover sponsored a resolution to give the employees an additional 1% raise. Some things you should know about that. He said in his speech it was 2%, but he wanted to add 1. First, he has no authority to do it, much like deciding what size sewer line we build. Second, we had voted and submitted our budget. Third, once again, he didn't provide any funding for the money, which would have been reoccurring expense. This was also the year he tried to take an additional $800,000 from us, resulting in arbitration. So I think you can clearly see that he continually votes and works against the school system, claiming he's looking out for our teachers. But I know our teachers, and I know they're smart enough to see the truth. July the 2019. Remember that charity I talked to you about the $584,000 that he stepped up to give us to Hook East? Well, he submitted a resolution that was co-sponsored by Mr. King, Crosswhite, Crawford, Hutton, and Harker Road to take back that $584,000. But he had a good reason. The reason was that the school system refused to put in a 6-inch line. He did this even after engineers told him that they would not sign off on a line of this size, telling him it would have caused bad smells up and down the Weaver Pike. In a meeting that I had with Jacob Grebe of Mattern and Craig, Jacob told the mayor point blank, "I have told you over and over, I will not support a 6-inch line." The mayor then turns to me, and I think Ingrid was at this meeting. He turned to me and he said point blank, "Mike, you could be a peacemaker here. If you don't build a 6-inch line, Herschel and Dwight will take back that $584,000. He added, "They will get what they want." I replied by saying, well, they're not going to get a 6-inch line unless this engineer recommends one. I will not engage in a tit for tat. And then at that point, the mayor got angry, stumped out of the room, as he's done on many other occasions. Now, I have emails to back up what Mr. Grebe told the mayor. He had told him and Mr. King prior to this, I will not sign off on a 6-inch line. But that didn't stop him from going out on this construction site and trying to stop construction of the project. While under construction, he went to the work site, tried to forcibly stop construction. They called me, and I told them he has no authority over this project. Ignore him and keep working. In my opinion, these are dangerous people to have in elected positions. Now, Commissioner Stidham did amend the resolution so that we could move our money from one line item to the other to put in the sewer line. But it only took 8 months and 5 resolutions. Let's go to December 2019. This is one of the 5 times they voted no on allowing us to move our money to build the sewer line. Remember, this was our money. We were only asking to move it from one line item to the other. During this time, they found out that now I don't understand this exactly, so everything else I understand perfectly exactly, but this I'm a little confused on, but during this time they found out that they owed Bristol around $4 million. This was a result of a discovery and a misreading of a 1996 agreement that was signed by then County Attorney Dan Street. You guys remember Dan. He was the one in the July meeting that could not answer even the most basic budget question, changing his mind in mid-meeting. But when first discovered, Glover thought that the document meant that Bristol would have to pay for the sewer line. When I read it, it was obvious to me that it was more likely that Sullivan County owed for back projects. As it turned out, it was another in a series of mistakes by Glover. This prompted a phone call from me from Mr. Mark Hutton. Mark Hutton called me asking if I would agree to use our money for a sewer project to offset the deficit with the city. Since I was only interested in moving the project forward, I agreed. So subsequently, that's how we finally got to move our money. It is important to note, however, that after I signed the contract, Mr. Hutton called Vice Chairman Jones and threw a fit because it wasn't a 6-inch line. Let's go to October of 2020. If you're wondering how he showed his concerns for students of Sullivan County in October, go back to the October minutes on page 27. 4 lonely people voted no on not putting turf on East or West Ridge. They were King, Glover, Blaylock, and Woods. Broughton abstained. Who abstains on something like that? This was for us to use our own money. We're not asking for anything. We just wanted to move our own money. Does this again seem like a commissioner that cares deeply about his constituents? In so many cases, his actions are simply inexplicable. This is just my simple attempt of answering some of his questions. There's so much more. If you would recall from his July speech, he claimed that he really cared about teachers and he tried to give them $500 to do whatever they wanted to do with it. And for some insane reason, he said they could have even bought gas with it. He then said we wanted to give it to principals. Well, none of that's true. We didn't ask for it. He had no authority to do it. Once again, he was trying to involve himself in matters where he'd had no authority. We voted no. This was around $375,000 that I thought would be better to be spent toward the raise that we ended up giving. And by the way, we had money from the federal government for CARES money for cleaning, so we just didn't need to spend it. But again, he made a resolution and tried to do something that's outside the scope of his job description. That brings us finally to July the 8th, 2020. That's the date that the commission voted on this year's budget. The budget that gave you this historic raise, and all they had to do was to vote yes to approve of what we had already put in the budget. This is the meeting where Mr. Glover spoke about how he cares about teachers. In this meeting, he gave out a chart that seems to discredit the school system for having a reserve fund. Earlier I showed you what he said about this when he ran. But I'd like to point out some things he failed to mention. I would also agree with some of his statements. I would agree that you should show up and see what he's doing on a monthly basis. He said that, and I agree with it. I will invite any of you to meet with me and challenge me anytime on what I've said tonight or I've said anytime. Make me prove it. Earlier in this summary, I addressed the $500 and the 1%, so I'll focus now on the reserves and the other comments he made, and this will be my summary. He says in his speech that the information they asked for, he has to jump through hoops to get it. Well, what he's referring to is, when he says when he asks the school systems for information that we don't give it to him. Well, when I was chairman, I worked with Ingrid directly. I watched her send everything they asked. But that don't mean that each individual commissioner can cause our employees to jump through hoops. When she sent information, she sent it to Larry Bailey. Now, to be clear, this is because each county commissioner cannot ask for individual information. Our staff has jobs to do and cannot have their time dominated by a few individuals on a witch hunt. We provide the information to the commissioner as a whole. Individual commissioners have no standing outside a regular meeting and no authority. Herschel Glover has no authority to demand work from school employees, no more than he has the right to demand construction workers stop work. He talks about the $8 million we're using to balance our budget as though we're asking for this money. It's already in our budget. We only requested it in the budget to take it from GP and use it to balance the budget. I think he thinks he's given us that money, but I'm not sure. There's no way of knowing what he's thinking because he's so confused. He says he and the commission has not tried to penalize teachers or students. Now, I'm taking these things directly from his speech. But what did he think he was doing when he tried to cut $7.8 million out of our budget? Who was he going to affect when he done that? Then he asked for you as teachers at minute mark, 1.09 mark of the video, to come to the next school board meeting. Ask where that money is. So let's talk about that money in the chart that he gave out. Their answer is yes, we do have that money in reserves, and we're going to keep money in reserves, just like he suggested when he ran as a candidate. They keep saying we got $24 million in reserves. What he don't tell you, or maybe you don't understand, is that part of that money is encumbered. And at any given time, it could be as much as $8 million, which means there's outstanding responsibilities to pay with that money. He fails to mention that the state law requires us to keep 3% for emergencies. However, if you read the article the next day by politician turned state controller Jason Mumpower, he recommended 16%, which is very close to what we have, by the way. So what about the past? Did you hear, and can you remember Mr. Glover saying numbers don't lie? Well, that's true, but politicians do lie. And while I'm not saying Mr. Glover is telling you a lie, what I'm saying is I can't prove he's lying, but I can prove that he's giving you false information. You can decide if it's a lie. Let's take the chart that he handed out. Look at the years between 2011 and 2014. What happened in those years? In many of those years, we had to borrow money. We had to borrow money to meet that 3% reserve required by the state. We had to borrow money sometimes to make payroll. Did you hear the criticism in those years? So we got criticized when we didn't have a reserve. Now we get criticized because we do have a reserve. But we're getting criticized by people that don't know what they're talking about in most cases. How many of you have you heard Ms. Rouse say that when she was a principal, that she had to tell employees to hold their paychecks to Friday so that they wouldn't bounce? Do we want to do our budgets like, do we want to live like that, or we're not? It's worth pointing out that two of the people that are over the county finance were over the budget during those years. The school system is proud of the chart he handed out. We'll take full credit for those results. His speech further demonstrated his inability to do his job. He does not understand. He's in over his head. Finally, he said this raise is in the budget. It has nothing to do with tax increases. That was correct. Then he says inexplicably, if I have to, I'll make an amendment. I have no idea what he was talking about. I'll come over there and sit and make sure they give you that raise. I don't see him here tonight. And in a matter of minutes after making that statement, he sat down and he voted no. This is my short summary. I have a complete one that I refer to for details, and I have one on everyone. In upcoming months, I'll feature others. Some will be very flattering, some will not. I hope they're all factual. I challenge you to challenge me. Anyone that wants to meet me, let me know, let me explain. We have elected several people that are not up for the task. We can correct that, and we will. There will also be a detailed report on our mayor. I know that you'll enjoy these facts. As a school board member, I am a temporary employee charged with doing the best I can for our system. I am humbled and proud of what we've been able to do. We're committed to one single task. Anyone can make promises, but who can keep them? The students and employees of Sullivan County deserve nothing that the counterparts of the city don't get. This board will not rest until we're able to give our employees and our students everything that the city kids and employees get. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for indulging me the time. I will have another report next month.
Each board member has a point of personal privilege. Dr. Rouse.
The only comment I have is just, I want to thank everyone, and everyone knows who that is, whether it be central office staff, county commissioner, or school board. Thank you, thank you, thank you as a lifetime educator for the raise that we were able to give.
Moving to my right, Mr. Gilmore.
Just 2 quick points. I'd like to celebrate Eliza one more time and her great work and what she's going to do. Thank you so much. You are representative of what we stand for. So we celebrate you again. And I'd also like to wish a speedy recovery to my friend and former colleague and Central Office Supervisor Brent Palmer. Hope you'll keep him in your thoughts and prayers as he recovers. He's an outstanding and talented member of our team, and we wish him a speedy recovery.
Mr. Spivey.
It was painful this year with our budgets, and it has been recently, but I want to thank the commissioners that voted for the budget and allowed us to give this raise, and echo what Mr. Hughes said at the start about the former board members and how long this has really been in the works within our internal school system, and also thank Evelyn, because I know that she worked on that long and hard and had to make a lot of hard decisions over the years with this goal. And thank you, Chairman Jones, because I know how involved you were with it and putting together all the data, and there was a lot of time that went into that on your end. And I know you're never going to take credit for it because you're here to do what's right. So, and thank you, Mr. Gilmore, because I also wanted to say, I almost said it when Eliza got up and gave a speech that's better than any of us can give. I just want to say how amazing it is if you sit back and go watch that speech and watch Commissioner Stanley, and thank you for being here, Commissioner Stanley and Commissioner Vance. What she has done already, I would challenge anybody to sit down and think of all that involvement and think about whether they're doing those kinds of things to help our community. Because I don't feel like I'm doing that good. So thank you for being here and doing this. Quite impressive.
Last on the agenda is public comments on non-agenda items, and Mr. Vance has requested to speak.
Thank
3
you.
minutes, Mr. Vance.
Well, I'm not gonna be long on
I know you're not. I got the gavel here.
mine. Don't gavel me, I get that done over on across the street. Well, thank you all very much, and I wanted to say a little bit of history. You know, this is the 3rd time Sullivan County has studied our school system. It was studied in a plan back when John Odell was the school superintendent, and the data from that report showed very similar to the last report of the Richter scale, the Richter report, and I was on the 1st and 2nd school study committee. And so the data and everything that was presented in the final and the decision that you all made as a board, in our conversation when Jack Barnes and Janie Barnes was here, and Dr. Odell, Jack Bales, and I have to speak highly of Jack Bales, because in those 2 committees I served on, Jack and I always got into the argument and said, well, you know, the studies show that we're having a decline in enrollment, and eventually we're going to have less facilities. And back in 1994, I remember there was a report that I kept up to date every year, and we had over 17,000 kids in our Sullivan County school system. Our school system was very large. But when those discussions talking about downsizing the county school system, there was going to be something about, well, if you have less facilities, less teachers, and less students, there's going to be a tremendous amount of operating and savings that you're going to see. And of course, over time, inflation went in and all that. But it's funny, Jack and I'd always had the stories that he wanted to give everybody the raise. He wanted to take all the internal savings by the downsize and give raises. And I said, well, we got 2 components. One, we need to renovate the schools that we're going to keep open, and we need to give our teachers pay raise. So Mr. Jones called me earlier this year, and I said, let's do it for Jack. Let's do it for Jack Bales, because him and Evelyn had been a long time school person, and that he had it really in his heart that he wanted to do this. So, in saying that, and over at the commission meeting the other night, and I listened to the teachers get up there and speak, and I thought to myself, these teachers go to work every day. They do their job. They don't care about this conflict between the county commission and the Board of Education. They'll go in and do their job every single day. They don't want to hear the Board of Education fighting the county commission and the county commission fighting the Board of Education. They don't want to see that. They don't want to hear that. Even in personal life, going through a real bad divorce, I saw my children that was stuck between a mom and a daddy. And I sat there and I listened, and I said, guys, we got to stop this, man. This bickering between the county commission and the school board has got to stop. They reminded me of my children sitting back there, of having to listen to things that's happened in the past. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you one thing. It's been a long struggle in the last 10 years, but I am so, so, so proud of our school system. It's been a tough battle. We have fought. We have got our school system where it's needed to be for many, many years. And a young educator, Andrew Cross, came up to me after the county commission voted to give that teacher equalization pay, and he looked at me and he said, well, what do you think? And I said, tonight, Andrew, me and you're going to go home. We're going to lay our head on the pillow, and we're going to know we made life better for 700 families in this county, what we did for our school teachers, and it's very well deserving. I said, that's what we're going to do. We're not going to bicker. We're not going to fight. We're going to do what's right. Let me just say something. You can talk about what happened 6 months ago. You talk about what happened 6 years ago. But as leaders and people in leadership positions to take responsibilities, sometimes we have to remove the personality and differences. We have to remove what's happened in the past. We won, people. We won. We've got 2 wonderful high schools. We've got elementary schools and middle schools. You all have done a terrific job in managing your budget. I was here as a county commissioner when the Board of Education had to borrow to make payroll. They borrowed it from the county general fund. I was here. I know how bad the school system budget has been in the past. I know you all are responsible. You're being accountable. We're in a situation to make the school system better. I don't think in criticizing a Board of Education because they have X amount of dollars in their bank is the right way to do it, because you've managed your money. You pitched the pennies where it needed to be at that right time. Now you've got the ability to use your money to renovate those schools. You know, I remember coming on the commission, parents called me and said, I need to go out to East High School. I went out to East High School, went into the library, and water was running down, had big trash cans full of water. I remember the same thing in Colonial Heights Middle School. Me as commissioners getting calls wanting to know why our Board of Education wouldn't do something about the roofs in these schools. Why I've had elementary and middle schools that hadn't had the money spent on them like they think they should have. I talked to a person the other day and they was talking about Weaver's Elementary. I said, do you realize the Board of Education had spent almost $800,000 to put steel beams in that school to keep it open so they get time to close it? That's the condition that school was in. You all had to make a lot of hard decisions. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm all about education. I'm all about CTE. You know, I was talking to Kingsport people today, and Dr. Morehouse was talking about what they're going to do with North High School and what they're doing in Bristol, what you all are doing in the county. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you something. If people in the public would get involved and see where we're at today and where we used to be at, everybody will be extremely proud of our education system in this county. workforce development, ladies and gentlemen. We have spent millions of dollars on industrial parks. And when businesses tell us locally that they need 50 employees, but they don't have nobody to fill those positions. I had an HVAC, a little small businessman, call me up last week and he said, my business is growing so fast, building houses and putting HVACs, and he said, I need people. Do you know anybody? And I reached out to the Bristol school system and the county school system, trying to find young men and young women that went through the HVAC program that's going to make good jobs. We need education. We need CTE. We need workforce development. It doesn't matter how much money we put in the ground and how much money we spend and put in infrastructure. We don't have a workforce here. To be able to bring a plant into this county, we're going to have to bring people in and we're going to have to train them. So I encourage you all to be involved in workforce development, be involved on the economic development. People are seeing that our education system is our #1 component that we have to get you all involved in. And you have to be involved with us. But let me say this. There's two ways. There's a way behind us and there's a way in front of us. We can always sit, look in the rearview mirror and figure out where we've been. But where we're going is what I'm interested in. And I see nothing but bright things that are going to happen in this county when it comes to our education system. And let me get this disclaimer out here. Mark Vance ain't running for county mayor, and Mark Vance don't even know if he's going to run for county commission again, and that's not the reason I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're announcing you're running for school board, or?
No.
Any other comments before we adjourn? Thank you, Mark. And you did send an invitation to a meeting on the 25th, is that right? You're just ignoring me.
No, everybody.
No, I said, you sent an invitation on the 25th of August, is that right?
Yeah, yes, this just to show you that some of the things that are going on. I'm on Networks Board, Economic Development. And I'll tell you a story. This is
Just
a
make
story.
it quick one though.
Real quick, I'm gonna tell you about this invitation. We're at the Networks Board meeting. We meet the first Wednesday. And Carolyn Farrell, that worked for Robinette Bike Company, was on that board, and she was sitting there and she said, you know, I've got $20 an hour job and I can't hire nobody. And so since then, there's been a committee called Workforce Development. And Dr. Sam Rowell at Northeast State is the chairman of that, and Abby Meese, that works for Networks, is the secretary of it. So we have positions for the county school system, Bristol, and also Kingsport. So they're now starting to come to those meetings. And Dr. Jeff Morehouse was there talking about what they're doing over at North. But it's really opened up by people talking. So on August the 25th, it's going to be put on by the First Tennessee Development District. And what the summit's going to be, it's going to be about workforce development. And the people that are inviting this, and I sent this to Evelyn, it's a conversation on partnership between education, government, and employers to build a workforce pipeline for our region. Topics include attracting and retaining top talent, apprenticeship, and internships, training, childcare, and other survey such topics. That's where education needs to be at the table. The businesses need workforce. They need trained workforce. And since then, they have applied for a $50,000 grant. That's going to be for workforce development, which is going to be coming to your school system.
We'll share that flyer with all the board members in case.
Yes, I appreciate all of that. Yeah. But that's exciting. When you get people talking together and having a need of something that you need, there's opportunities for both sides. Thank you.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.